D.C., and it's not by choice, I put it that way. Many of you know, I guess the value shows I've been spent some time in the military, like 30 years in the U.S. military, and I actually grew up Islamically in the D.C. area, and I left there to go overseas. And when I went in the military, it was not popular. There were no accommodations for Muslims, and I was a Muslim. In fact, up until recently, I was the longest serving active Muslim in the military. And there were other Muslims in there, but they weren't active, we didn't make it public, weren't doing things. I went in as a Muslim and advocating certain things, so over that 30 years. And I say until recently because a good friend of mine, who's now been with the community in D.C., Command Sergeant Major Sultan Muhammad, he did 32 years as an active Muslim in the military. And in fact, he had leadership over 1/5 of the army as a Muslim, non-Muslim. And so that answers some of the questions about the effectiveness and loyalty, etc. Muslim military. But they saw me doing a lot of things, the community in Washington, D.C., and we call that the nation's mosque. It really means nation's mosque in America because it's really the first one that was built in America from the ground up. Descendants of the enslaved and descendants of enslaved Muslims in America, and also the first one built in the nation's capital by its citizens. So therefore, it is the nation's mosque, and it's an 80-year community in Washington, D.C. That we're leading right now. And because of some of the things we pioneered, and again, I said we didn't have accommodation, didn't have any Islamic chaplains. We now have all those things. We can go to the prayers on Friday. In fact, on both bases, if there are Muslims there, some of them actually have dedicated, actually some of them have mosques built on bases. They have dedicated mosques, they have dedicated prayer spaces, not just multi-use spaces. For Muslims, now, none of that stuff was in play when I went into the military. And so we were. What year was that? That I went in? 1979. 1979. And so when I retired, the imam at the Nation's Mosque retired the exact same month. And they had did a wonderful retirement for me. I was in Georgia at the time, and of course they saw it, and many from D.C. came because they knew me, and I grew up there. And they thought it was an opportunity to bring me back because Islam before we had hit, and they thought, well, you've been served, you've been in. One of the biggest questions is loyalty. So I ended up in the D.C. area, which is where we are now.
So I think